You talk about the coaches and your high school coaches and different things. What are a few of the characteristics that you loved about your coaches, and whether it was middle school, high school, that helped mold you, before you went on to Coach K?
That's an interesting question because I did not have a good experience with my high school basketball coach. We had a number of coaches that coached at my high school, so it was a revolving door of head coaches, and I think it was the last 2 years of my high school experience. An older gentleman got the job that had been teaching there for a long time, and the truth is there was a reason he didn't get the job before that. It was not a good experience for any of us. And we had a number of guys that played Division I basketball, and we were really good, and we were all friends, and we all knew each other. And so my experience with my teammates was awesome. I think our collective experience with our head coach was not good at all. And I don't think it was individual to me, but it became miserable to deal with them. And I just never understood. I mean, I deal a lot with coaches now in the camp that I have, and we have a coaches academy that I don't know that we're qualified to do it, but we try to teach young coaches how to do this and how to do it right, not just from a technical aspect, but from in dealing with young players and parents, all that stuff. And one of the things that I talk about a lot is coaches fall all over themselves talking about only 5% of athletes are going to go on and play beyond high school. So if you really think about that, if you think it's true, well, then your requirement as a high school coach, and I think it is a requirement, is to make that experience a positive one for all of your players. Since such a small group are going to go on beyond that, that's the end of the line for most of those players in organized sports. And whether you are the most knowledgeable X and O coach on the planet or the least knowledgeable or something in between, I don't think your players are going to hold you to that standard. They want to be treated right, and doesn't mean you can't coach them hard and all that stuff, but they have to be treated well, and you have to be invested in their well-being. And I think I see too much of where they're not, and that's a big deal for me. My youth coach was a guy named Dick Spidell, and he was very demanding, but he was never demeaning to us. And he was the first one that made me feel like I was really good, and it was uplifting. And as a result, you wanted to do more, not only for him but for yourself, and you held yourself to a higher standard because of how he made you feel about yourself as a player and a contributor. And he was the first one, when my eighth grade year was ending, and I was about to go to high school. I went to a really big high school, and I was unsure, like, am I going to be able to compete at that level? And I asked him, do you think I can make the team? And he looked at me and he said, make the team. And he goes, you're going to be the best player this high school's ever had. And when he said that, I had a totally different view of myself. I didn't think of myself that way. So, your coaches have a unique ability to lift you up or tear you down. And why any coach would choose to tear down a young person is beyond my comprehension. It doesn't mean you're dishonest with a player and tell them they're more than they are, or all that. But every player you have contributes to the success of the team, whether they play significant minutes or not. And if you're not acknowledging that and nurturing it, I think you're making a mistake as a coach and a leader. Those are important aspects of coaching.
Jay, what advice can you give to kids today who are kind of struggling with that, with a coach that may be more of a transactional type of coach, like you, and really what kind of got you through high school dealing with that coach? Can you give some advice to kids who are kind of struggling through that?
I don't know what got me through it, except I didn't have a choice, and that was what was so important to me. I was being recruited, and I was lucky. I knew I was going to play after high school. By the time I was a sophomore in high school, my college decision came down to who I wanted to play for most, not what school was best for me. And that's probably not the right way to do it, but that was what I was confronted with. When I was making my decision on where to go to college, I realized that was the only time in my athletic life I was going to get to choose who I played for. You don't get to choose who your high school coach is. And when you go to the pro ranks, you're drafted. You don't choose where you play. In college, I got to choose, and I was not going to screw that up. because I wanted to play for somebody that I wanted to be around and that I trusted. And that was a big factor. I didn't trust my high school coach, and there was a reason behind that. And we had really good players. So we had a number of guys that played beyond high school, but we had more that didn't. And those are my teammates that I feel for the most, because that was the lasting memory they have of their organized sports experience, was that negative interaction they had with our high school coach. And he never came. It wasn't a type of relationship where later on in life we all did some really cool things. I never invited him to a Final Four. I never came to one of my high school, one of my college or pro games. We didn't have that kind of relationship. And my college teammates, my pro teammates who did have that with their high school coaches, um, I thought were really lucky. I don't know whether they were really lucky or I was just really unlucky. But look at it from the standpoint of his sort of his benefit or lack thereof, that look what he missed out on. He missed out on enjoying, a lifelong relationship with his players. Everything ended when we left. And, we had a reunion years later. We all got together with our wives when we were, in our early 50s. And my wife left there saying, didn't it strike you funny that nobody thought to invite your high school coach? And I thought, he was living at that time. And I told her, I said, well, none of us did, but there's a reason why none of us did. And it's just, it's kind of unfortunate for everyone. But when it really comes down to it, I actually think it was most unfortunate for him.
I'm a high school athletic director, Jay, and one of the things that our coaches try to strive for is we want these kids to invite them to their weddings, their coaches to their weddings. If you've done that type of job in nurturing that child and that kid, that it meant that much to them, that they'll invite you to their wedding. And so that's kind of, not always happens, but that's kind of the goal.
Well, it's a relationship business. And at the end of it, look, I played for a number of different coaches in my athletic life. Some of them were really good, technically sound coaches. Others weren't as good. But I didn't judge them on that. I judged them on how they made us feel. And, did I enjoy the experience? And, same with the teacher. I mean, I'm sure I had a number of teachers that were unbelievable educators and others that were less than that, but it's the ones that were invested in you as a person and made you feel a certain way. Doesn't mean everything had to be buddy buddy or all that stuff. I really do think you can be incredibly demanding without being demeaning, and people want to meet. I think people want to meet your standard as a leader, but they have to know that you care about them beyond what you can do on the floor, in the classroom, or whatever. That you have value beyond that. And it was unfortunate we didn't have that with our high school coach, but I had it in so many other areas that wasn't the total of my experience. There were other great parts of it that made up for that lacking part.